Welcome to another episode of the Flats Nation podcast. And a big shout out to Brother Dave Fader down in Amarada for the awesome music. You can check out more of Dave's phenomenal work on davidfader.com. Well, welcome. And today we have one of our team members here on Flats Nation, Captain Justin Packard. This one should be really fun and very educational for sure. Brother, welcome aboard. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Dave. How about yourself?
Good. Let's get started with the general stuff first and give everybody a quick background on Brother Justin. Give me a quick bio on yourself and how you got started into the fishing industry.
Yeah, man. Well, it kind of wasn't really intentional. I don't think a lot of things that you
I hear that a lot. I do.
Yeah,
I hear that a lot.
I mean, I don't think it should be intentional, but I don't think anything's really all that intentional. You just end up somewhere and you either like it or you don't. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in Southwest Florida, Marco Island area, and
Awesome.
just growing up, bass fishing and the freshwater stuff off of Tamiami and
All right.
and golf courses and hijacking our buddies' parents' boats every now and then to get out in the salt. And
Love it.
I mean, that was kind of the deal. Would run out on the old 27 Pro line that my buddy's parents had that we had use of to go and dig up grouper, when grouper fishing was really good down there, and run out to the towers. And on the inshore side of things, I mean, I think we spent more time on the water at night, dock light fishing, more than anything. Started getting more into it, my other buddies' parents, little Carolina skiff, old J16 buzz around, and run over an oyster bed.
Powered bathtub. Those things stable, but could beat you to death.
I mean, fortunately, back there, we'd only have to cross Marco Pass or Caxambas Pass, and we were in some slick stuff, so just go dig around, man.
That's right. That's right.
It don't matter. And I mean, as long as we didn't go fish on a falling tide, I think we generally made it home.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, the snook and redfish and trout, and it's like, all right, we're gonna go out and catch a couple fish to eat and play around and have fun. And I think every time we went out, we got a little bit more serious, and it just kind of evolved into what it is, now. I think evolution really just took hold, and it's like, all right, well, our buddies, me and a good buddy of mine, OC Knackle, he guides up there in Marco now. We would
awesome.
we would bring the spin rods, and we'd bring a fly rod, and use that as much as we could. And it was like, all right, little by little, the fly rod had a little bit longer time in our hand, and
it's a progression, that's for sure.
Yeah. And his stepfather at the time, is his mom's significant other. He was a big fly guide up there, and he would little by little, kind of get us into it a little bit more. And as far as like the freshwater side is concerned, we use it a lot. I would use my fly fishing abilities a lot more in freshwater for bass and brim and gar, all the stuff you'd see off of Tamiami, and then just like I said, just kind of, it was a bit of a progression, getting into the flats game.
That's a beautiful area along that drive.
It is, man. I mean, they're just, there's everything. I mean, everything from sugar trout to tarpon.
It really is.
Pompano and all the game fish, all the big five game fish, but just everything else that exists in our little fishery in Florida there's a plethora of species around there. So
That's true. So now, who taught you how to fish?
that was my father.
Dad taught you how to fish?
Oh
Now,
yeah,
did he
yeah.
fly fish also, or was he
He
mostly
did.
spin?
He
Did he?
he
Awesome.
he fly fished. He got me. It was mainly spin fish when we were kids. But he gave me a fly rod. My first fly rod was probably about 8 or 9 for stripers in Cape Cod because that's where he moved to.
Right.
And I he had me in the backyard casting into the hula hoop
Right.
in the backyard to hone in on it. But if I was a fly on the wall in that lesson, Lord knows I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and he was trying, and like I said, it resonated, and it came back in the later days for sure, and obviously now, but yeah, the mainly spin fishing, when we were kids, and bag of frozen shrimp from Publix, and you're off, that's it.
You spent some time in the Navy, did you not?
Yep. 5 years, enlisted about a couple weeks after 9/11. It was all.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
thank you for your service. We appreciate that.
well, thank you for your service.
You were a quartermaster, so there's no excuse for the Coast Guard having to come out there and find you if you got lost, right?
No, if the Coast Guard had to come and find me, then that would be a totally different Coast Guard from what I know. Though I have heard recently of some coasties being in Iraq while I was over there, which kind of confused me because I didn't realize y'all crossed the big ditch. But I
Not
guess
unless you have to, buddy.
not unless you have to.
That's for sure.
But yeah,
or it's bad weather. One of the two.
Yep. But I was a quartermaster. Was initially in the SEAL program, and I just kind of in the program that they had back then, it was you do half and half SEAL training and half of what you enlisted under. And over the course of that time in school, I realized I liked the navigation side of things, and the drawn out process of the SEAL program, I 100% lost steam. And
it's brutal.
Well, that's how they weed people out, and
sure.
they want you to be 100% in, and I was about 95% in,
and that's not enough.
No, man, nope. And so I took up the quartermaster side as a navigator, and I mean, I couldn't have been happier with my career path in the Navy, alongside the commanding officer all the time, behind the wheel, knowing where I was, seeing daylight, and
seeing daylight. Yeah, exactly.
Seeing daylight, man. I know you don't know that as much, being an engineer.
Well, but it was small boats, so was up on deck a lot. But I get it. There's a lot of guys that lived in the hole.
Oh yeah, Uncle Fester.
That's right. We could go on forever.
Sweating.
We could go on forever for the military stuff, but that needs to be its own show where we can just laugh and cut up and carry on about some of those stories. That's for sure. But
naturally,
that's great. Tell me how you got started becoming a guide, and how many years have you been guiding now, buddy?
Well, I've been guiding for just about 10 years here in the Keys.
Really? Great.
Yep.
I did not realize it'd been that long.
Yeah. I worked at a lodge, privately run lodge at a Duck Key for the first, 6 years or so. And, 6-7 years, I guess there. I was guiding kind of back and forth. I moved from Fort Lauderdale, and, basically got emailed fired by a dude. First time I'd ever been fired. And, spoke with one of my good buddies from college who's from Marathon, and started, I guess I'm kind of regressing a little bit here, but I started guiding with him, meeting with him, on his Parker, out of, Key Colony, for the first year. And I was still in Fort Lauderdale, so I was driving back and forth. I'd come down and stay at his place for several weeks at a time, when you go through a stretch. I mean, I did everything from, fishing the bridges for tarpon to running offshore, and doing the whole offshore side of things and patch reef fishing,
Right,
so
right.
kind of got a little bit of an intro on the Keys fishery that way. And we're just about a year into that, a slot opened up on a 74 Viking, which was owned by the lodge that I worked at. And I
Nice
kind of,
vessel.
yeah, man, I cut my teeth on a 74, and did a lot of that, sword fishing, offshore, reef fishing, sail fishing. And then we had about four other boats that we ran out of the camp. We had a 21 Parker, 25 Contender T.
Right.
We had a 22 Coastal Bay Action Craft, and then we finally, just as the lodge was closing, I talked them into buying a Floyd 10 weight, which was my dream boat. It was my baby, and unfortunately, only got to run that for about 3-4 months after COVID hit. The lodge closed, and they let us
Yeah.
all go.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Unfortunately.
and
Yeah.
I went fully on my own. Yeah, it was good for me because it pushed me to go out on my own.
Right.
And I had been guiding on the side probably after being here for about 4 years. I wanted to make sure I knew the area, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing any of those that are from here a disservice by crowding the water one, and knowing it well enough to where I wouldn't get in people's way. And I wanted people to know who I was before I decided to charge money to take people fishing. I feel like I grew up in a very small community, and I'm a big fan of the small community approach towards our ecosystem, our
Sure.
economy, everything. So that was
Fishing
that's
is the economy of the Keys. That's for sure.
oh God. I mean, if I don't get how some people here in the Keys don't like the water. I mean, why are you
Yeah,
here,
they need to move to Iowa or something.
bro? Yeah, I mean, like, what?
How can you be in
But
the Keys and not love the water? It's all around you.
it's all around you, man.
And if you're not
But
careful,
I don't know
sometimes
if,
it's in the
maybe at
house.
one, yeah, yeah, about every 10 years it comes into the house.
I had a buddy of mine tell me a joke the other day. Try not to diverge too much, but he was sitting there going, "Yeah, what Christmas and hurricanes have in common." I go, "Tell me." He goes, "Well, eventually you're going to have a tree in a house." I just
Yeah,
said, "Buddy, I can
yeah,
relate to that."
dude. I mean, it's coming, right? But
Uh,
yeah, the whole guiding thing, man. I mean, never in a million years would I have ever thought that this was gonna be my dream job. It is.
well, yeah,
I work for myself. I get to be myself, and people, they keep coming back. So
well,
I
now,
guess I'm doing something right.
how hard of a transition was it for you to move from the offshore back to the inshore fishery when it comes to learning that fishery versus
Oh, it's all
chunking and
relative, man. It's, I mean, so basically inshore fishermen way before, so all along. And when I went to college at FAU, I got into the offshore fishing
right.
naturally. Palm Beach County, man, like
Sure.
that's the most accessible offshore fishing there is. And
Oh yeah, the
after
Gulf
I
Stream's
caught,
right offshore.
yeah, man, I got really into spearfishing. And really into the offshore side of things. Maybe you could inshore fish in the intercoastal, and some of the spots around there actually have great snook fishing,
Oh,
great tarpon fishing.
oh, I bet. I
I
bet.
mean, some of the coolest tarpon fishing I've seen. Yes, it exists at Hillsborough Inlet. During the first fronts of the year, like it's eat everything. It's like a worm hatch.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, all
but
over the place.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, so that whole thing, and then getting offshore. I mean, I think the first sailfish I ever caught just totally, wrapped me up. Awesome.
Yeah, I bet
Um,
that'd be kind of addictive.
yeah,
Now, was
yeah.
that using conventional tackle, or did you do the bait and switch and throw a fly at him?
Oh no, I wasn't anywhere near the fly guy then. But no, it was all bait, just on kites and on balloons,
Right.
just drifting the edge in the evening, man. Blackfin tuna, big blackfins and sails and potential wahoo or potential mahi, but that was kind of like the deal. And I was super fortunate to become friends with some younger guys there, that were just, they had everything at their disposal. They're great dudes. Their parents were great to them in that sense too, and
Sure.
trusted them to do this stuff. And they've been doing it for, hey, at the time, my buddies were probably 16, 17, maybe 18. And I was like 24, 25. I'm like,
Right.
these kids could fish. And I was very much, a backseat driver to their skill level. And so it was really cool to watch and learn and be the one like but that was like that was it, man. I
Right. Right.
really enjoyed it. And then, so I got to learn a lot more. I moved to North Florida again, to wahoo fish and mahi fish and do a bunch of more offshore stuff with a good buddy of mine who lived up there. And it was always uh back and forth to, all right, now we're gonna go red fishing in New Smyrna, Indian Lagoon or Mosquito Lagoon,
Right.
any river, all that stuff. And then go back down to Southwest Florida and fish. And then I started to get into I finally bought a boat, and when I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and my first guided trip ever was after, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years of having my boat. I was going to tech school. I had a 97 Hughes Bayfisher 16 that I
Hmm.
was kind of my project boat while I was in marine technician school. And I would put my boat in the water at 10:30 at night once the water taxi stopped running in Fort Lauderdale. Usually Friday nights and Saturday nights, and load up the cooler, and I would go and I'd fish till like 3, 4 in the morning, usually by myself, hit dock lights and dig around all the really awesome fishery in Fort Lauderdale at the time, and snook and redfish and or I'm sorry, snook and tarpon, and that was kind of the deal. And my first trip I ever got was at LMR Tackle. My buddy Kevin was a rod builder over there. They own Salt 2.0 now, off of 17th Street. And he was like, "Hey," we went to tech school together. He was like, "Hey, you want a charter?" I was like, "Well, I guess." Like, I was very much flying under the radar and all that, but
Sure.
I took a couple kids fishing that night. That's basically all it really was. And a couple kids from North Florida, from the Panhandle, wanted to catch a snook and a tarpon. They'd never caught one, and they showed up with their gear, which was like all super high end, Loomis rod and Stratic Stellas. And I'm like, wow, these kids got some gear.
Yeah,
14,
some
15
expensive
years old.
stuff.
Yeah, yep. And I was like, all right, cool. So, I mean, I think I ended up rigging up my old Stratic, my kind of big snook, small tarpon combo. And
Sure.
kid ended up catching one of the biggest snook I've ever seen. I mean, it was absolute mongoloid,
Big
solid
female.
45-inch female, fat as can be. I thought it was a tarpon, ate a crab on the bottom. I was just kind of having them float crabs through these tarpon, and one just swam to the bottom underneath the dock, and he got tight, and I was like, "Oh, you got one, dude!" And it started head shaking. I put a flashlight on it. I saw a head shake. I was like, "Oh God, you got freaking
Beast.
Snooks! You got Snookzilla, dude!" And it went from kind of relaxed mode to like super panic mode, and he fought the fish for 30 minutes like a champ.
Wow.
And we got it boat side, got the lip and got a really awesome photo of the kid, and
That's great.
revived that snook for probably 20 minutes. It was in the summertime, and it was like,
Sure. Water temperature's high.
We
Lactic
made
acid
sure that
buildup.
that
Yeah.
girl was going back to her home, man. Uh-huh. And
Go make babies.
yeah, exactly. And it was in an area that's no sharks.
Right.
It's like that fish swam right back to its dock, sat on the ground again, and back to business as usual. Used circle hook.
Right.
But
Awesome. Awesome.
and then we went and caught a tarpon for the other brother. So it was like bam, bam, and it was like
Well, that's
holy,
cool.
like that was a bit of a calling in a way, not to sound whatever, but it was like wow, like first time ever doing this.
I
That
could
was
do
pretty damn
this.
cool.
I
Yeah,
love it.
So that was cool, man. That was really cool to share with those kids, and you never know around there. It could, just like anywhere else, it could just be a total dud. But yeah, dock light fishing, man, it's a lot of fun.
It's a gas. I've
Yeah,
done my share of it, especially when it was
yeah.
just way too hot in the
Oh yeah,
daytime. Or
that's
you
it,
you hit it early and you're off the
man.
water by noon. Go take a siesta, put the boat back in the
Yep,
water after the sun goes down and
yep.
cools off. Yeah, I get it. I get it. So now that you've transitioned over to the inshore game with your guide service and everything that you're involved with, what is your favorite body of water?
I mean, I live in Big Pine Key. This is my favorite body of water. I absolutely love it, and I think it's a very special place. I
That it is.
do fish a
Great.
lot in the Everglades as well. You know, it's a haul. There's a reason why it's good there. It's because it's tough to get
Sure.
to.
It's out of the
Um,
way. That's right.
it's out of the way, and there really isn't any way or easy way to be there all the time. You got to earn it, and there's a handful of dudes that earn it there, and it's an absolute beautiful place. But I mean, growing up in Southwest Florida, I'll always have to scratch that itch.
Sure.
But
Sure.
but but the I'm sorry, Lower Keys, is my preferred body of water.
Well, that's a
It's
beautiful place too.
Yeah,
Down
it's
there
more
around
difficult to
Shark
get to.
Key, and that is it is. It is. It's
Yeah.
just a beautiful area.
Yep. Yep.
Sure.
So really everywhere from Key West to Moser Channel.
Right.
Marquesas all the way to Moser Channel is kind of what I prefer to fish and just be on. This is my preferred body of water for sure.
What conservation groups are you working with now, and what improvements have you seen from those efforts from the 10 years you've been guiding and on the water on an almost daily basis?
Yeah, I've worked with BTT in the past,
Yep.
kind
Our
of.
buddy Ross.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. And done some tarpon tagging, some bonefish tagging, permit tagging, and actually was able to participate in a brood stock event that they had where we were able to catch some bonefish and keep them in healthy captivity and transfer them to the folks up there at Harbor Branch at Florida Atlantic University.
Right. Right.
And they were able to get them spawning and figure out some more on how that all works. And so tarpon tagging, learn how that all works, and how far these fish are going north and going south and east, west, up, down.
I think a lot of people would be amazed how far these fish travel.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you kind of unlock little things here and there. And I mean, I don't think we need to play God, on all this stuff, but the understanding aspect of it and what we could do to better serve those animals is I think the ultimate goal, as opposed to just catching them.
Sure.
Like
I agree
it's
100%.
it's to
It's a
their
renewable
benefit.
resource that needs to be protected
Yep,
without
yep,
having a total hands-off approach. I just
yep,
totally disagree with that. I mean, to
yep.
keep a father and his daughter from going out there and catching a few fish with a topwater plug that they probably aren't even keeping, to me, is just a little insane. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And also Captains for Clean Water, those guys are absolutely great. They've been doing some events here in the Keys over the last few years where, they get all the guides together and just kind of run through the deal, and it's not like it's a very neutral zone in
Sure,
that,
sure.
you know, obviously, like, you're a fishing guide, you've got competition with the other fishing guide, blah blah blah, up north, south, east, west, whatever. But in that particular situation, everybody's there hanging out, and it's a great place to meet other
Sure.
people that are like-minded. And what you may have thought of one particular dude, you see them there and you're like, okay, well, they get it, they care, for the better, um and vice versa. Maybe you didn't see somebody there, so maybe you're like, well, it doesn't make them a bad person, but maybe they're just kind of out for the buck or whatever.
Sure.
But so that's kind of been a little bit of an eye opener in a way. But those guys are like, I mean, just making so much progress for
Yeah, they have.
getting things straight and holding people accountable. And I mean, they've created a precedence that politics and political figures that they just can't ignore.
That's right.
So that's, I mean, those guys have done some amazing things. And I mean, that's kind of my whole take on it is, and you see them and you're just like, and there's a couple of guide, and also the Guide Association. I don't know how I forgot about talking about them. We got the Lower Keys Guide Association and then the Florida Keys Guide Association,
Familiar
um,
with both.
both of which are equally as involved in captains and also BTT, Ocean Conservancy,
Right.
and Everglades Trust. And I mean, not to omit those guys from the kudos, but obviously everybody, Bull Sugar, they're all, I think they're Vote Water now, but all those guys, man, like, everybody has really stepped up. And then, a couple of those guys at the Guide Association our way, getting things together with, what Key West is struggling with, the safer, cleaner ships. I mean, watching that all go down. I mean, I can't vote being a Monroe County resident. You have to be a City of Key West resident in order to vote on all of that cruise ship stuff. But that organization as well, I mean, they're fighting the freaking cruise ship industry.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
talk about
Well, in the
coin.
tourist industry as a whole, but here again, I think that's what's great with these groups that you and I both work with and help to represent and help bring the message out. At the end of the day, recreational fishing in the state of Florida is like $9.2 billion annually. As I've always said, if you want to get somebody's attention, hit them in the wallet. That's a pretty
Yep.
big fist.
Yep.
That gets somebody's attention, including our elected, not ordained representatives.
Yep.
That, look, this is probably one of our biggest industries here in the state of Florida is recreational fishing, not commercial. Commercial is only a third of that. And nothing against the commercial fishing, because that's how I get most of my seafood dinners. But when it comes to dollars and cents, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. It really is a big part of this state's economy. I think that's why we helped coin the phrase.
Yeah.
No fish, no Florida. I mean, that's pretty much it, especially in the lower part of the state, from the Keys up to the Tampa Bay area. Fishing is huge. And
Yep.
recreational fishing, not just fishing as a whole. Not the guys that you see going offshore and coming back. It's the guys coming down to take trips with you and the locals that are taking trips with you. That's just a huge part of our economy. So yes, it needs to be, wise use, and it needs to get the attention that it deserves to help get our water quality back so that it supports that industry. So, I applaud those efforts. But so much for getting on our political soapbox. That's for sure. We could go on that forever, you and I, as we've
Yeah.
discussed in the
Yeah.
past.
Yep.
Let's talk gear. Let's talk about your guided trips and how you conduct those and what you like to do. And how long have you been fly fishing now and making your own flies?
I mean, fly fishing since I was about, said 8, 9, 10 years old. Um, yeah, serious with it, probably, uh, going on 20 years, you know,
Awesome.
ish, with different variations of, different levels of, you know, I don't know, just getting into it more, over
Sure.
times
Sure.
and less, so it's like, I'm doing a lot of fly fishing lately, but really, I mean, since 100% since I've lived here in the Keys, that's been a very large part of it. Uh, Fly fishing, yeah. So really, since I've been in the Keys, that's I've been full blast.
Awesome.
As a fly fisherman, and spin fishing as well. But
What's your
um,
favorite fish to pick a fight with on a fly rod?
I mean, it's whatever the day gives you.
Really? So you don't have a drug of choice
Um,
like tarpon
I, I,
or bones or
uh, man, talk to me one day. I'll say something else the next day. But
I
it's
get it. I get it.
I love bonefish. But I think, tarpon are probably my favorite. Snook as well though, and redfish. I mean,
Yeah, that's
I'm not the biggest permit angler. I mean, that for whatever reason, it's not really something I target as much.
right.
Um, Very easily could. I think most anglers don't have what it takes to be as effective, um, on that side of things as it needs to be, as you need to be. You need to have done everything through and through and through, and have perfected every other species before you move on to permit fishing on fly. That said, I
Oh yeah.
mean, you want to get the
That's
heart rate going. You see a 20-pounder doing a headstand in front of you, at 5 p.m. off Upper Harbor, in the summertime. That's pretty cool,
yeah,
man.
that is.
But tarpon in the early spring or the fall. Uh, I mean, the migration season, those big ones, man, there's something else, I guess all in all, I'm probably just a total tarpon junkie, you know.
That's your drug of choice.
Probably. I
Yeah,
mean, but
foods are your drug of choice, that's for
but
sure.
yeah, so there it is.
So now, depending on the target of the day, and I know you tailor your trips towards, a certain species if at all possible or if requested. What have you got tied up on the fly rod? What's the first thing that's getting pitched for the most part? Shrimp pattern,
Um, I
crab
mean,
pattern,
it just depends what we're looking at on a tide. If it's like, all right, we're gonna start off looking for bones and permit or reds. Yeah, shrimp or crab. All day long. If it's more of a tarpon tide out the gate, then or snook and reds, I like EP flies. I like a little peanut butter EP bait fish fly.
right? Right.
They're very universal. They work for jacks and catch cuda, catch snapper, ladyfish, anything that could bend the rod really. Um, I wouldn't doubt it if a bone eight would eat a very little pilchard fly, you know, um, they eat bait fish,
That's true.
when they get bigger. Yeah, but I've had plenty of buddies catch bonefish on like baits, like Rapalas and
Yeah,
friggin'
which is
mirror lures.
amazing.
Like
Most
it,
people
it,
don't
it
they don't
is.
connect that dot, but
Well,
it is
well,
amazing that they will.
they're generally not like a surface eating species,
No,
but I've
no.
but I've seen it happen plenty. And reading about bonefish and their diet and a mollusk pattern, then you're technically fishing the most efficient fly there is.
Sure.
It makes up like 75% of their diet, but no, I mean, shrimp and crab patterns or a bait fish pattern, and you're rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
100%. Those are my go-tos. Yep.
And the backup rod is the same way, or do you usually like to have a mixed offering?
Well, I mean, I generally don't fish a backup rod.
Okay.
If I got fly anglers, we're kind of sticking with one. Yeah, just because unless I got somebody who's nimble and swift and quiet and efficient, then I won't offer having that second rod splayed out and ready to rock and roll. I just so many people they just take too long and they clunk around in between. So
Yeah, speed of
unless
cast
I
is
have
what's
somebody who's very
more important. That's for
keen,
sure.
I mean, when you're sight fishing here, when you're flats fishing here, any vibrations, any clunks, anything, you're out.
They're
The
gone.
moment, yeah, man. When you're in the heat of battle, like it's just throw it. I don't care if it's not the preferred fly, if it's not the preferred leader size, if it's not this, not that. It's too late. Just go. Now, if I have two anglers on the boat, I'll have a guy fishing back up with a spin, um, you know, with a bucktail on or a soft plastic, depending on what species we're targeting. But generally don't have a backup fly rod out. Very few people can successfully execute that switch
Right.
and not just completely blow everything out, So if that answers your
Oh, yeah.
question.
I've seen some guides, they would have their 11 weight or even 12 for tarpon. And then if they saw a permit or a bone or whatever the case out of the corner of their eye, they would have an 8 or 9 weight ready
Yeah,
to
man,
pick up. And
I've been down that rabbit hole so many times, even with really experienced fly anglers. And what it all comes down to is focus. You didn't
sure.
see that permit swimming there. And if you did, then throw the tarpon fly at it. Otherwise, you want me to break off the tarpon line and go in and fish for permit? Fine. Then we're putting the tarpon rod away.
Right.
So multitasking, it sounds great on paper, but more often than not, it ends up in double failure. You not only miss the permit, but you pick that 9 weight up. I guarantee that
Then
string
you'll
of
see a
tarpon's going to
tarpon.
swing by.
Exactly. It never
Man,
fails.
never ever fails. So see the process through. If you want to switch, we'll switch.
Be
But
dedicated
very
to the
seldom, like I
effort.
said.
I get it.
Yeah, man, 100%. And like if you really want to play that game, I would just suggest using a spin rod with the alternative approach. You're permit fishing, all right, have a spin rod with a tarpon bait on, or vice versa.
Right.
So that's that's really, you get too much going on, man, and everything. You just blow it all up,
This is true.
Yeah.
Now, I
Yeah.
know that water in that area is pretty clear
Yeah.
most of the year. I mean, it's unless you get some high winds in winter, it's usually gin clear. What what leader material do you like to use, and how long are you using that to target? It probably doesn't matter the species. What do you like to use?
Man, I have been really keen on the Scientific Angler Absolute Fluorocarbon.
Uh-huh.
And I really like the way that it turns over. I mean, I've been a Seaguar Blue Label guy forever. Um, it's expensive as all get up,
Yeah,
but
it can be.
it's it gets the job done. It's just the thing I found with Seaguar is it's a lot harder material. Some people like it. So I actually like more malleable, and I've found that SA stuff to be my drug of choice in terms of leader material.
Turns over for the rate of speed that you're
And
casting. I get it.
no, it turns the knot over really well.
Ah,
It's, in order to do all of these super intricate leader, to construct all of these, you know, uh, effective lighter leaders with, improved blood knots or whatever your knot of choice is. I mean, go down the list of knot geeks,
yeah,
like
that's almost an art form making these
what,
leaders.
what, Oh, 100%. I mean, 100%. I I'm nowhere near the leader guru is there's so many people out there that can 100% tie better leaders than I can. But for me, in my formula, I think I've kind of, I mean, like I said, I got the offshore background, so I could tie a Bimini in 15 seconds. I mean, and like we're good. I
Right.
could tie it damn near blind. Um, I've done a bunch of different stuff. Marlin fishing, sword fishing, stuff like
Sure.
that. But I just a knot's a knot at some point. I don't buy every single little part of it. But there's no disputing that certain knots are going to hold up better.
Well, of
So
course. Simple physics.
th- yeah, man. So basically where I'm going with it all is, if I could use something that's a little more malleable, which is generally mono is way easier to work with
Oh, it
than
is.
fluoro, but I mean, tying bimneys and improved bloods and stuff like that with some of that stiffer lead material. It wrecks your hands.
That's
You gotta get
tough.
the gloves out, and it's stuff you do at the bench. You just can't do it in the heat of battle, like you can with that softer stuff. And I mean, so that's kind of what I've become a little more keen to. And I haven't really had malfunctions, along the way,
Well,
so
that's the important part.
yeah, man. I mean, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So,
It's true.
I mean, and I've seen all of these companies with, whether it's Seagar, Rio, SA, Mason, go down the list of different fluorocarbons. I've seen bad batches from every company,
Well, of course.
and so that's kind of where I stand. I like this SA stuff, and
Hey, if it
it's
works
it's yes,
and it's
yes, yep, yep,
consistent, I mean, that's
yes,
critical. I mean, we all
yep,
have our favorite stuff that we've worked with, and
yep,
I know that feeling. Speaking
yep.
of that, what brands of fly tackle are you using and sponsored by these days?
Well, R.L. Winston rods, they're my go-to for fly stuff.
Awesome.
Great rods. Yeah, very, very surprised by how well they perform. They have been through the ringer on my boat. In between species, just durability. I mean, big tarpon. I mean, I don't know how many. I don't count every fish I catch, Dave. I'm not that guy. Um, but I do count fish during trips.
Right.
And I could honestly say we landed probably 50 to 70 tarpon last season, big ones. And that 11 weight air salt
Good deal. Good
and the
deal.
10 weight and the 10 weight and the 12 weight, so it just depends on what rod was rigged at the time, with what, so,
And what
during,
are these spoons that you're chasing after there in that particular time of the year? I mean, are these the smaller males, sub 100-pound spoons, or are these the bigger females that you're?
anything from 40 to, 140, it's a lot in the Everglades, so
Right.
when you're fishing intermediate line, you might latch into a giant, you might latch into a prince,
Oh yeah, and it's jungle
um,
warfare at that point.
yeah, yep. So, I mean, but then, obviously the migrators here in the Keys, you've got fish that are generally 40 to little over 100 pounders,
Sure.
I mean, there's obviously variants there. They could be bigger, they could be smaller, but generally those are the size, that we're targeting here. And smack dab in the middle of the bell curve is like the 60 to 80 pounders, right? So that's no, they're all full grown fish. I mean, I do fish plenty of juvie tarpon for people that are just getting into it or have been into it for a while. It's just not migrating season and there's not big ones around, but, fishing them from 7 weights to 10 weights,
Oh, I
on
love
the
them
on the
little baby
smaller fish.
spoons.
I love
Yeah,
them.
yeah, man. I
They're a
mean,
blast. They're probably my
they,
favorite because they're doing
they,
backflips and everything else.
oh yeah, I mean, they kind of, they're around year round, so they're always, something we can go and, try for. So I mean, really every single one of my rods has been used on tarpon. So from 7 weights all the way up to 12 weights.
So now, are you
Um,
using the full line of from 7 to 12 weights on Winston rods?
yes, yeah, all my rods are Winston rods. Yep, yep. Alphas or Alpha Plus or, Air Salt. Those are the two. And I was very surprised, in how they held up. Like I said, on those bigger fish, um, I mean, they are a softer rod. There's no questioning that. But they work better. They work more for the angler. It's not as much, what I call chopping wood.
Right.
Everything's kind of slower, more drawn out,
My kind
and
of rod.
yeah, man, let the rod do the work for you. You don't need to make a Herculean effort to make a 80-foot cast. If your rod is paired correctly with your fly line, the right grain, the right taper, everything is just smooth as silk. So, all about the Winston rods on the fly, spin gear, all Shimano, Shimano reel, Shimano rods. Um, and I wish I could get my hands on some more spider wire, like I think most guides here would prefer. But that seems to be harder to come by these years, that Invisibraid stuff or the
Right.
stealth braid. I mean, whenever I find it, I just like I load the basket. Like,
Get it while
I'm
you can.
fishing.
I
Yeah,
get it.
man, I fish all really light stuff. Yeah, 8 pound, 10 pound, braid, um, for my bonefish and permit rods. And then for my, um, you know, tarpon, redfish, snook is 15 pound. But that stuff is just killer. It's super durable. It does not win not anywhere near close to its competitors. I'll leave it at that. Um,
Well, it comes in handy.
and yeah, man. Yeah. Well, the worst thing with braid is wind knots. And,
Sure.
and when you get brand new line and I
That can be a pain.
I don't have time for that, man.
I get it.
Um,
I get
you
it.
know,
Yeah. It takes time. That's for sure. Time
yep.
away from
But
the trip. And yeah.
all Terramar rods, and, Stratic reels or Saragossa, for the big sticks. Like I said, I got the offshore, blood in me to some extent, and,
Sure.
our Saragossas, and or Talicas, either one. Those were, for lighter tackle stuff. That's what we use. So,
Back to your fly
that's.
rod though. What are you using for reels and line? What have you used and what do you like? And
I mean, I kind of go around, a little bit with the reels. I mean, Winston has, gotten me on with Bauer reels, and I'm a big fan. I love how, wide the chassis is for line capacity and not binding. They're not quite
right.
as narrow
Right.
as some of the other companies. A fan of that, a fan of their drag. It gets tight. It's sealed drag, and it could get really, really tight. I have been, fishing Orvis, Mirage on my big sticks, and, Hydros on my smaller sticks. And, they're very durable, and they're great for charter. Being a fishing guide, being a charter guide, they get beat, man.
Well,
So
they
it's
get
it's
beat and you don't want to have to deal with failures on these.
no,
It's a
no, no.
marine environment. It's rough.
Yeah, yeah. So they get, I mean, I, probably should say this, but I'm honest. I don't soap and chamois my rods every day like I used to in the offshore community. They get the freaking hose at the end of the
That's right.
day, and they
Cursory
and
rinse
they
off
and
and
they
we're at
drip
it again
dry.
tomorrow.
They drip dry. Yeah, because I mean they didn't even dry before they're going back on the boat. But I don't leave them in the boat every night. They
Right,
don't
sure.
stay in the rod holders or
Right,
no
right.
squirt at all. They do get a squirt. And when I'm feeling happy, I'll blast them with Salt Away, you know. But no, I mean that's and always back the drags down, always back the drags down,
Right. Loosen
always
them up.
back the drags
Yep.
down. Yeah,
Get it.
yeah, and that's especially with the sealed drag system, you need to do that. But
Yes.
T-bore reels, I mean, being a guy who grew up in Southwest Florida, I would I love those reels. I have a soft spot for them. I love the clicker. I love the battle tested aspect of a T-bore. They're bulletproof. You
Tough
can
reel.
break them apart, clean them, put them back together. Let's go. Unlike some of these other sealed drags that have to go, you got to send them in.
Right.
And, customer service is customer service. You never know what you're going to get.
No, that's true.
Unfortunately. It's tough when a fish cooks a drag on a brand new reel at the beginning of tarpon season, and then you don't get it back for 8 weeks. What are you
That's a
going to do,
long
man?
time of year to have that kind of a problem.
So the bigger the company, I feel like that you would feel you'd get, some sort of priority, being a guide and having your gear and, clients' hands all the time, trying to make an impression. You think that would be, advantageous of them to expedite that process,
I
but
would think so.
I'm not the only guy in the world, man.
Well, that's true.
So that's
Sure.
the way that all goes. But I mean, I don't think anything's bulletproof. Everything has a potential to fail. This is what's worked for me up until now. Until I hit the jackpot and can buy all $2,000 reels for every rod that I own. This is, yeah.
But, and speaking along those lines, and I know you and I have discussed this in the past, I think that the barrier to entry to fly fishing is the perception that you have to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars to
Correct.
get into
Yep.
the sport, which
Yep.
you can. You can spend a tremendous amount of money, which, sometimes that's a tough nut to swallow. Even for me,
Yep.
I mean, you got to justify it. And so if you're looking for, let's say a parent or a grandparent that's wanting to get their child who's ate up in the fly fishing, what gear would you recommend that if they take care of it, that, just doesn't cost a king's ransom, to give them a good start into this sport, on fly fishing, the flats?
Yeah, man. I mean, my first setup was a Fenwick and Orvis reel. This was Fenwick HMX, along with a Orvis, is it Rocky Mountain, older reel, and that was kind of like my go-to salt or freshwater setup. And I used it some in salt for sure until I got my next combo, which was TFO, the TFO Mangrove or Axiom. Coupled with, I was able to get a Lamson Conic, which is like an old beater reel, but that thing has put the stop on a lot of fish. And I haven't used it in I don't know how long, a long time, but
TFO is known for making some quality tackle at a reasonable price.
Yeah, no, and I mean, very reasonable. I think that whole thing, brand new, the whole combo is like a little under $300 between I think the reel was like 70 something bucks, $75. I think the rod was just around 200 and then fly line backing, yeah, man. And their price point is very affordable. Reddington makes some great stuff that's super affordable.
I like their reels.
Their reels, the Behemoth reel is,
I like that Behemoth.
That's a very, very popular, entry level situation there. So, I think a lot of people get carried away with making the right choice. And which we all do. We don't want to have buyer's remorse, all that, into consideration, but, I think everybody nukes it, man. I think we think way too hard about it. And, like a client who had, one of those, Blair Wiggins rods, from Lowe's that he bought. And it was a whatever kind of fly rod. it was a 9 weight, but it's like really stiff, definitely, a little different than what I'm used to. But I mean, the dude caught like 7 bonefish on it in the Bahamas when, I was there with him. And I mean, he was fine with it. Whatever, I casted it. It cast great. You know what I mean? Like rods are rods, reels are reels. I mean, the majority of people aren't going to put gear to the test as much as, they might think.
No,
Reels
unlike
gather
you,
the
I mean,
line,
you're on the
rods
water
throw the
almost
line.
every day. That's a different
Yeah,
ball
yeah,
game.
yep. So I mean, once you get to that next level of seriousness, once you're like, okay, I'm going to be catching big tarpon, I'm going to be catching permit, I'm going to be catching bonefish, like then you need to spend some better money on reels. And once your cast develops, like definitely at a fly shop, trial some rods.
Oh,
Go
definitely.
just try them all out because you might not have to work as hard, or you might have to work harder. You might be a soft guy, might be a stiff guy.
Well, right. A
It's
rod
just the
that you
way
would
you
like,
are.
I may
Yeah,
not. I mean,
one hundred
showing my
percent.
age a little bit, my first fly rod was fiberglass. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't, it's like a buggy whip. So
Oh
I'm
man,
used
yeah, it
to a
is. Yeah.
slower cadence. It
Yep.
was a very difficult transition for me when graphite first started to come into the market because it was so much quicker.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to use a shooting analogy, it's like shooting a flintlock. You're going to have some
Yeah.
hang
No,
time.
man. 100%. Muzzle loader versus an automatic.
Exactly.
It's totally. But yeah, and it's funny too. Actually, I've got a butter stick, Reddington butter stick for. It's not a joke, but it's kind of like when I'm fishing with the guys that I know are like total wood choppers, just trout dudes that go straight up and down with it, just whap 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 whap. Here, stop. You have
Right.
to fish the butter stick all day now, like, and it does though. It makes them slow down, and that's great. I
Right.
mean,
Think about the cast.
yeah, just slow down. But I think that there's more and more available to guys getting into it now, where you can actually go into a fly shop and not get the evil eye. Where in the past, like you're kind of walking into the boys club and it's like, who's
Sure.
this guy? You know, and I can relate 100% being a surfer growing up. Like somebody comes in, starts grabbing boards off the rack. I'm like, who are you? Like, but now I feel like it's become a very popular thing to do. And, a lot of shops, they're all about trialing stuff, man. I mean, I
It's going
could
to
be
work for you.
wrong.
It's going
Maybe
to
they were
work.
like that. Well, maybe they were like that before. I just never experienced that, at least when I was younger.
No, no, not like it
But
is prevalent
I feel
today.
like that's I would think, I don't know. I could be wrong, but that just seems like something that's, you know, the way it was more or less. But so unless you had somebody who was a guru leading you along the way, I just feel like that wasn't quite as accessible as it is now. And yeah, just try them out, and I think that's the best approach to it all.
Sure. What about clothing items? What do you find that's comfortable, that works for you in your ecosystem where you're not out there sweating totally to
Um,
death and you feel works best? I mean, you're on the water a lot more than a lot of other people are.
I wear a cotton shirt and Dickies, Dave. I'm old school.
You are old school.
I'm just kidding.
I was going to
No,
say that would be a sponge on me in about 10
oh
minutes, if
my
that.
God, man. No, I mean, I think every company's got a great, approach to it all. I mean, Patagonia has kind of been what I wear a lot more of now.
Have you
Their
tried any
Capeline.
of the newer bamboo stuff that's
I,
out
I
there?
have Free Fly's great too, man. I've got a bunch of their stuff.
I love it. As I'm sitting here in my free fly shorts on, I love it.
Yeah, no, but it's comfortable, but durability has to become a big part of it too.
Sure.
And polling, um, anything that's inferior in
Sure.
terms of durability. So, I get that, not everybody buying the stuff is a guide, and then they make a line for guides, and then everybody buys them, so then they don't have them for the guides, and like,
Are
but
you
but
sponsored by any clothing brands by chance?
I'm not, but that would be great. But we get we, you know we get our pro programs with a lot of different companies, which is super thankful. That it's great that they're able to give us some stuff
Sure.
that's on a little deal there. And but no, as far as I don't know, man. I mean, I've got moral dilemmas with a lot of things, like hats. Like, why do I want to buy a branded hat? I'd rather buy a hat from somewhere that the money I spend is going towards something good. Um, and I've kind of gone that way. Like, I view Patagonia as that company that's like, all right, well, they just sold to a trust that puts money back to the world. Like, that's what a concept. So that alone to me is great. They have great clothing, and then they give money back to, you know, uh, conservation societies
Sure.
and non-for-profit organizations that are trying to make the world a better place in every way, shape, and form. But I fish, or I use I've had Sims stuff for a long time, the bug stopper stuff with the insect guard. I
Comes in
like to
handy in the
think
glades.
I like to think it does, but anything that's self-wicking with a hood, lightweight, and durable
Oh yeah, love
is
the
and
hoodies, man.
and
Love the
and
hood.
something that fits me. I'm this kind of a leaner dude, so I feel like I'm not quite the target audience when it comes to clothing sizes. It's generally they don't have my size. I'm too small, so I have to go down the road of like finding a slim fit stuff. And it's like, like, I don't want
All
to
right.
wear a belt every day. You know what I mean? Like,
I get it.
and I don't need an elastic waistband because I had two more beers that night. Like, no, I don't, like, that's just, I mean, whatever, it's so that's all that stuff is you're negotiating, but that's kind of been where I've found the clothing side of stuff is just like any one of us, right? You
What about
find
colors? I mean, do you put any stock? And I love asking this question to my guides because some do, some don't. I
yeah,
personally do. I'm a big fan of a sky blue shirt, so I kind of fade into the background,
yeah.
or
I
or
just like
what?
neutral, natural tones. That's it,
Okay.
Um, gray, light blue, white, and that's it. We're gone. I don't wear camo. I I don't know. I don't know if it's like a fashion no. Maybe
Well, to
I
me,
think I think
the camo aspect is the egret. God
well
made him white
well
because he looks like a cloud to the
well yeah,
fish.
but I'm talking about like the cloud camo
Yeah,
shirts that are
some of
or yes, I mean, you know what? If that's what you want to wear, I say go for it,
as
man.
long as you're
But
comfortable.
I I think there's a lot more that we can do on the boat to evade the line of sight there, our stalk, right? Like, get low,
Sure,
don't stand so high, crouch down, get an athletic stance and become smaller to them. Spearfishing, for instance, that's a very debatable topic as well. And I mean, I've had camo wets, had black wetsuits, and I, in all honesty, have never seen a difference. Um, you know, in terms of fish, you look at a fish, there's counter shading, right? So the top is dark, the bottom's light in order to match where you're looking at, right? If you're looking
sure.
down, you're going to see the dark, it blends in. If you're looking up, you're going to see the white that blends in with the surface. So in terms of that, I would venture to say lightly colored clothing's better, barring chartreuse, hot pink, construction worker safety orange. Like,
Right,
leave all
right,
that shit at the dock.
right,
But
right.
natural tones. And I don't think you need to. Yeah, the color of the sky is really kind of, or you ought to be kind of focused on. So light gray, white, light blue. that's just kind of where I live, and it keeps you cooler too.
Well, that's the
So
key too. Yeah, you
yeah,
definitely don't want to
yeah,
be out there in a black shirt. You will die.
yeah, and that kind of ties into the whole clothing thing as well. Stuff that's going to keep you cooler. And I mean, as far as clothing industry is concerned, we've moved mountains in that manner and getting away from cotton and like so the bamboo stuff or whatever sort of materials that companies are cooking up to keep us cool. It's just great to be able to wear long sleeve, long pants, shoes, a buff, and a hat
And
and
not die.
gloves and not die. Yeah, you might get steamy, but some of that stuff actually keeps you cooler once there's a little
Oh, I would much
dust
rather
in it,
wear
so
quality
it's really
technical
quite amazing.
gear than have
Yeah,
to try to wear sunscreen. Sunscreen just
yeah,
blocks up your pores. You can overheat pretty quick with that. You got to be careful, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah,
What about sunglasses? You're out there on the water all the time, so you get to
yeah.
cut through the marketing fluff. What brand do you like to use? What color do you like to use? And how have you seen that change and improve over the years?
Well, so I mean, I generally have a set of amber lenses with whatever mirror color. And then I have a set of low lights, on board. I usually bring a couple pairs of low lights so I could, hand them off to my angler
Sure.
if it warrants that low light. Cause I mean, there really is a big difference there. But as soon as that sun pops back out, I think you ought to go back to the amber lens, with a mirror. I just feel like anything too good is not good for you. And I know a lot of guys that are like, I just wear my freaking low lights all day long. It's like, yeah, X-ray vision. It's like, well, yeah, but I just can't help but think there's too much light getting in. It's probably not good for you, even though they are polarized and, you got UVA and UVB protection.
Sure.
But Smith is my brand of choice. Chroma Pop glass, all day long. I was a big fan of Costa before they were Costa, and it was Costa Del Mar, and they were out of Daytona Beach and
Right.
Ormond, and
Long gone now.
they're long gone now, man. And not to bash on them because they do make great stuff. The durability and their customer service is just, it's a skeleton of what it used to be. As far as Smith's glass lenses being that tech light, it is way lighter on your nose and you're not, I used to get headaches at the end of the day from my Costas, from my Jose's or, whatever frame I was at, Triple Tails or Jose's. Those were my two frames that I really liked. And, with that glass lens at the end of the day, that was bare. But the lens
I've heard that from
itself
others
is
too,
great.
Justin, that
Yeah.
they were getting headaches with certain lenses after
Oh,
a while.
1,000%. Anybody who spends, many days on the water a year will tell you you're gonna get a freaking headache, or you're gonna, your nose gets pressed, on the bridge of your nose. And so that coupled with the, like I said, that durability really took a dive, and then, the customer service followed soon after, because I just feel like they swapped some materials out and they were having a lot more problems. So they couldn't just do what Costa used to do and send you a brand new pair for $20,
Right.
and I mean, when I was a kid, I worked at the surf shop on Marco, and selling glasses was a big part of our, little deal there.
Sure.
It's almost like
Good revenue stream.
well, yeah, but we would like kind of compete amongst the guys that work there, and like, trying to get people away from the Chili's or whatever glasses that we sold or whatever. And hey, get on, take a look at these Maui's, or take a look at these Costas, or take a look at these Smiths or whatever, and that was a big part of it. Me understanding glasses at earlier on,
Right.
and getting into wearing good glasses when I was in high school. Like,
It makes a world of difference.
I got a nice pair from a rep a long time ago, and it was like, holy crap, man, like this is it. And, where we have the Fathoms, those were like the super comfy Costa Del Mars, and then they changed over, and then I'd wear Smith or Costa, and then I wore Costa for a while, and then I went back to Smith, and I just feel like Smith is doing it right. Their customer service is spot on. And they take care of everybody, and they're comfortable. They're way more durable, and their customer service is where it needs to be. So I'm all about that.
I'll have to check out a pair. It's been a while since I put on a pair of Smiths, and I'm a big fan of going somewhere and just taking a couple pair and going outside, trying them on,
Yep.
just see what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, if my face
Yeah.
relaxes, that's all that's important.
And having good side, good protection on the side.
Right.
The
You don't
larger
want-
frames, like the guide choice. Yeah, I mean that was another thing that Costa and Smith did is for water light that would come in from the sides would reflect off the inside of the lens back at you. They put film on the inside of that lens to counter that. So that was another huge advantage. But then when you have a set that has wider coverage on the sides that just doesn't allow any light in, you see these guys wearing those pairs with like the leather chap,
Right.
like a little,
No, I remember those days.
I mean, which they've been around forever. But yeah, man, like that, like, hey, that's
It worked.
it. That's where it's at,
That's right.
But you're making a fashion statement at that point.
Showing your age, too.
Yeah.
That's for sure. So what do you feel is the number one mistake? Now, you take a lot of people out on the water naturally. Well, so if somebody's wanting to improve their skills while they're out there on the flats, well, what do you feel is the number one mistake most anglers make that really cuts into their strike ratio? Is it a lack of cover scent on their lures? Is it noise from the boat? What do you see that your anglers are making as a mistake when they're on the bow?
Fly fishing, spin fishing, bait fishing, and
Probably all
I
of them.
guess. Oh boy.
I mean,
You
are they
ambushed,
just
you
moving around?
ambushed me here.
Are they moving around too much, or what do you feel?
I mean, that it's such a tough question to answer because there's a lot of things going on. But yeah, I mean, staying vigilant is a big part of it. I mean, with fly
preach that
fishing,
situational awareness all the time.
yeah, man, fly fishing, it's a lot of guys that come from freshwater backgrounds, so trout setting. That's the numero uno. Is if you finally
doesn't work
get to
too good on
feed
a
one of
boom.
these,
I'm sorry.
it doesn't work good at any saltwater application. So I try to get my guys to put the rod tip in the water after casting and be athletic. Get an athletic stance. Turn to your fish. Don't fish it over your shoulder. Square up on the thing and get low. Get your rod tip low. Get your angle low, and just strip. Don't do anything with the rod when the fish eats. Just get tight on it. Get tight again. Get even tighter. If you want to give it a little sideways, action imparting the butt section of the rod, great.
Right.
That's going to drive the hook in a little bit more. But the surface tension of the line through the water when the fish begins to run is going to generally set the hook 9 times out of 10. With a tarpon, you do have to wail on them a little bit to
They got a mouth like a cinder block.
really drive that thing in. Yeah, man, so I've seen them, I've had hooks set up on the roof of their mouth in the tiniest piece of flesh and, 8 inches back up in there on a 150 pounder. I've seen it just barely, hooked on the fleshy part outside their jaw. I've seen it hooked on their dorsal. I mean, I've seen them landed in all kinds of crazy ways, but generally tarpon are, going to be the hardest to set the hook, but almost any other, aside from snook, like snook have hard jaws as well. Redfish, bones, permit, they're soft, soft lips. There's a lot for that hook to set up in, even a jack, even a yellow jack or kudas. They've got some bony jaws. So that's a whole other story. But yeah, I mean, trout setting is probably numero uno way to ruin it.
Yeah, we have a
Um,
saying here
uh,
in the South, brother. That
it,
dog don't hunt. That
no, it
doesn't
doesn't.
hunt.
There is no uh room for that sort of stuff down here. And you don't need to do anything with the rod. Yeah, okay. If you're fishing around mangroves and you hook a bone or a permit or a red, yeah, get it up high, get the line out of the water. That's so circumstantial. 9 times out of 10, I'm not fishing around heavy structure to where you really need to do anything once you hook that fish. Like, yeah, bow into a tarpon, jumping, and getting a bend in the rod is fine. But in the process, man, that all that rod is doing is just casting. Just after the cast, don't do anything. Just strip. Um, that said, casting, you need to learn how to double haul. You need to know how to back cast. No, none of this across the body casting stuff. That's because I feel like they're gonna just then cast over the boat because and
Right.
you know you're never casting over the boat. Yeah, I could go down the list of what not to do on the boat when you're with a guide, but that's I feel like not quite the topic at hand. But and then on the other side of things, if you're bait fishing, wind tight. You're not in a bass tournament here. Wind tight on the fish first and then set the hook. Don't go swinging for the fences when you feel a thump. Wind tight, set the hook.
Yeah, you're not trying to
Um,
drive a hook through a big plastic worm or
no,
something.
and here's and then one more thing. I got a really important topic or a really important statement to make, but circle hooks also just do less. That fish, the circle hook is designed for the easiest approach in fishing possible. Just slowly wind, and that
Yeah.
thing's going to
As soon
set
as
up
he turns,
perfect.
it's going to set the hook. That's right.
As soon as he turns, it's going to set the hook, man. And you could set that hook by just winding, and even if they are swimming at you, you could set the hook just by winding, getting a little bit fast, as long as your retrieve is a little faster than that fish is swimming, it's going to slide right up in the perfect spot and it'll be a perfect hook set every time. Now, never never do the opposite. Never pull with a circle hook. Never try to set the hook with a circle
No
hook.
need to.
But I think you don't. I think the most important thing to understand with hooks is you think about how much money is in the fishing industry and what is probably one of the most important aspects of it, the hook. So there's been, I can't even begin to imagine how much money dumped into the design of a hook and for
There's a
its
lot of
application.
engineering that goes to it. A lot of people don't realize it.
There's a lot of engineering. There's a lot of engineering. There's a lot of company that has spent. I don't know how much money, man. That would be an interesting number to get your hands on. But let the hook do its job. You rob the hook of what it's supposed to do when you knee jerk react. There's just no room for knee jerk reactions. Yourself and execute, and that's it. You could talk about 1,000 different ways to hook baits and size hooks to go with the size bait, size hook to go with the size fly. All of that is a totally different topic as well.
Sure.
But what it all comes down to is just allow the hook to do its job type of deal. So.
Let's move over to skiffs, one of my favorite topics. What are you running nowadays? And give me some of its strong suits and weak points, because there's no such thing as a perfect skiff. You and I both know that. We've sit there and said the perfect skiff is the one we have built in our mind. What are you running? How do you like it? And what do you consider as some of its stronger points?
Well, I just was able to get a Floyd 8-weight built this past summer.
Awesome.
I took ownership. Yeah, man, I'm absolutely loving it. With our application here in the Keys and in the Everglades, covering big water that's just a part of it.
Sure.
And then hopping up on a flat, you want something that could pull shallow. In particular for bones and reds, they get really, really, really skinny.
And stick their tails out.
Yeah, they stick their tails out. That's when they stick their tails out. So if you're trying to get into that, you're gonna need to be in 5-6 inches of water. That's just the way it all plays out. So a true 5-6 inches, not soft bottom that you can eke through,
Right.
talking a real 5-6 inch draft, So this 8 weight has really lived up to the task. Running from marathon to 9 Mile Bank, and then getting into all the stuff after that. There's some open water you're crossing. You're crossing Florida Bay. You're crossing into the Gulf of Mexico at times. It's sporty out there.
Yeah, it can get rough.
For 18-foot. It gets really rough, man. So having something that could run in water, and then also on the other side of it, down this way, crossing over some of the big channels, Spanish Harbor Channel, Moser Channel, Johnson Channel, some of the stuff out west, Boca Chica Channel. I mean, that's all really big, unforgiving water that can swallow a boat whole on any given day. So that's a big part of it. And then going shallow, and then obviously the comfort and dry riding is what your clients are hoping for. It's almost impossible to stay dry when it's blowing 20.
Right.
But if boat handling comes in at that point, if you know how to tack, then
Sure.
you'll be all right. But if you can just
Drop a tab down. Sure.
put it in put the screws to it and hammer down and not have your boat bow steering in 3-footers, that's pretty damn cool. And I think that this skiff is pretty good at pretty good in running in those funky, like following, quartering seas that really want to throw a curveball at you. That's been a huge advantage. Being
Yeah, I've seen some
comfortable
of these skiffs, buddy, that can get sick and sideways pretty quick.
Oh yeah, I've been in them. I've been left bows and and bow steer, almost throw people out of the boat type situations. And when you're running a boat, sometimes going faster is the better route. And if you
get you on
dig
top of
it,
the wake.
it'll get you on top, man. And if you dig a rail, dig a chine, that could spell some pretty shitty times real quick. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of
What do you
where I'm at.
What do you find her drafting when you've got her loaded with yourself and two clients?
I mean, it's got an 18-gallon fuel tank in the bow. It's got, I have a power pole, 3-foot power pole, or a 6-foot power pole, Pro Series 2, and the option to have trolling motor, Minn Kota 70-pound, in the back or in the front. And it's got a 30-gallon live well, 25 or 30-gallon live well.
Well, that's a lot of weight there.
Well.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a lot of
weight. So I'm sporting a little bit of weight. I'd venture to say 1,500 pounds at that point, in and around. And that boat still pulls in 6 inches of water.
weight.
I've
Awesome.
Yeah, I had with 2 anglers and myself. The hull design, it's damn near flat bottom in the back, and it's got a real early entry on the bow. So it's a soft riding boat on the pad, even though it is a flat bottom. So
Do you know what the dead rise is on that hull?
I think it's less than 4 degrees. I'd have to
It's pretty
consult
flat.
with Brian. Yeah, I'm not the biggest tech or the biggest skiff geek in numbers. Maybe I should be. I just know it works really well for me. But I was fortunate enough to get the number 2 hull, and I was fortunate enough to get the number 4 hull of the 10 weight. So I've operated both boats, and I could say I'm a fan of both. Applications are a little bit different. But if I had a choice between the two, I'm very content with my 8 weight and what it is that I set out to do, especially, here in the lower keys, where poling is the way. You're not at anchor. You're not on the trolling motor as much, really about the only time I use a trolling motor is when I'm at the bridge or snapper digging, you know.
Sure, sure.
Um, and that's really about the extent of my troller motor usage. I have found that the rear mount is pretty sweet for, you know, spot locking when you're at a bridge because everybody can, you know, if it's not turbulent, you know, you're not gonna spot lock at Bay Honda with a trolling motor off the back. Oh no, you'll drown 2 seconds. Maybe on a slicker, but not likely. That place is too much water moving around. But
Oh
most
yeah,
other
that
bridges,
that water flushes through there like a toilet. I mean, it's moving.
yeah. And if there's a little bit of wind mixed in, it's victory at sea, man. It's a
It's
scary
it's a
place.
cauldron.
Yeah, it's a scary place for skiffs. But the you know, any other bridges, I mean, mounted in the back, being able to spot lock, have people fish off the front. That skiff, that Floyd skiff, has got enough dead rise in the back, and being, you know, rounded on the edges, it tracks well. It
Right.
doesn't dig like most skiffs are hard 90. It doesn't tend to want to dig to one side or the other. It allows, you know, fluid dynamics to actually work. And everything just kind of drifts underneath that hull. It doesn't grab, man. It's really quite amazing.
What engines are you running on them right now?
Yamaha F70. Yep. The LB. It's is it the LB or the LA? I might be confusing that with my F90 and the F90 LB on my Hughes. No, I believe it's the LA, the F70 LA.
And you
Um,
find that engine has enough power to move that hull and
oh yeah.
two
Oh, what?
clients
Yeah.
and
I get out of the hole in, you know, less than 10 feet, man. That thing is up and rolling. It doesn't even really squat much, on the whole shot, you know, tab down a little bit, even engine trimmed up. Um, it just glides, man. It's like a slipper. It's just all of a sudden going forward.
what is the hull
Um,
material on that one?
it's
Justin,
fiberglass.
is it all glass? I didn't know they
It's
had
all,
any
all,
carbon
all
or
glass. Yep. Yep. No replacement for displacement, right?
well,
Um,
what
I,
they say
I'm a,
about an engine.
I'm a fan. I think that glass is a better ride.
Oh,
There's more shock
definitely.
absorption going on there.
Sure.
You know, the other guys running the carbon boats tell you different, you know, but you know, once again, preferences, right? So I'm a fan of the glass and I think it's an easier repair. I'm not well versed in carbon fiber, repair. But I know it's pretty similar stuff. I just haven't really worked with it much, but, you know, I like what the glass does for me, you know.
Right. You have any marine flooring down on yours? Sea deck or
I
deck it
do.
or
I use, you know, so Brian and Heidi have a relationship with SeaDeck, so they outfitted me with SeaDeck. I'm not, you know, SeaDeck, Marine Mat, Deck It. I don't know that I have a preference to any one of them. You know, that's kind of my whole take on the whole thing.
sure.
SeaDeck seems to have the largest market share. So I think they're the most accessible in most places. But I had Marine Mat on my Hughes, held up great for 4 or 5 years that I had it. You know, so
How
it's
do you
I
compare those two hulls? I mean, you spent quite a bit of time on your Hughes, and you've
oh yeah.
now had your Floyd for what, one season, season and a half? Um,
Not even. No, I've only had the Floyd now since July.
wow.
Um, and I did run that 10 weight for about 3 4 months. That was from November till about March, you know, February, March. Um, but the 8 weight I haven't fished through a full season yet, but I've taken it to some pretty harrowing into some pretty harrowing conditions. Um, but the Hughes, man, you know, that was, you know, so to speak, the boat that started it all. I know a lot of guys at one point or another had a Hughes, you know, a lot of guides at one point or another had a Hughes, and I was an old Lappy,
Oh,
97, 16 Bay Fisher. And, you know, I over the years learned how to drive that boat. And I've had a lot of friends, whether they were just trying to make me feel good or not, say, give me compliments on it and how shallow it pulled and how well it rode in the chop. And, some people say it's the wettest boat they've ever been in. Well, maybe you're not driving it correctly.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
But
you're not a
yeah,
coxswain at that point
yeah,
in time. You just don't know what
yeah.
you're doing. Yeah, I
You,
get it.
you're, so, but, that's all subjective. But that boat pulled shallower than a Dolphin Super Skiff. That boat pulled shallower than a Hells Bay Marquesa. That boat pulled shallower than a lot of them. And it also rode in big water really well. And I was, like I said, a marine technician, so I re-rigged the thing myself. I repowered it. Brian actually helped me hang the F90 on that, which that boat was made for that engine, or vice versa.
Sure.
It had a two-stroke C80 on the back originally, so I was two-stroke gang. But once it got that four-stroke, excuse me, and I put hydraulic steering on there, what a difference! And it was tricked out, and the young man that owns it now hopefully is equally as stoked on it as I was. But as far as comparing it to my new skiff, I mean, it's just technology, man.
Oh, it's a huge difference between the two. And I know that those old lap strike
Yep.
Hughes, they
Yep.
have a cult following. Some people, they
Oh,
love them things to death.
100%. Yeah, I mean, there is a cult following, and it's great. I hope that boat will, I mean, shit. If I didn't have to sell that boat, I wouldn't have. If I had a big old barn here, I would love to pull that thing out and ride around and fish it. And some of the bigger water stuff, like at the bridge, man. Oh my
Sure.
God,
Oh, yeah.
that boat was really good for bridge fishing. And it's these smaller boats. I wouldn't call my boat tippy at the least, compared to some other skiffs that are liability
Oh,
tippy.
some of these things are like a war canoe.
Oh my God,
You're
man.
not getting me up on that pulling
and
platform.
and I'm not going to mention any hull
No.
designs, but there's boats, man, that will launch you off the pull platform, at the casting deck, off whatever, when somebody comes down, and without a lot, if they didn't tell you they were coming down off the pull platform, coming off casting deck or whatever,
We're going in the drink.
we're going in the drink, man. But that Hughes was very stable, extremely stable. And the way that I was able to tweak it over the years worked great for me, but as far as performance, efficiency, and what can be done, this 8-weight is I just haven't been on another boat that comes close, man. Maybe I'm a little biased because I just drank the Kool-Aid and spent the coin and bought it, but aren't we all? But no, man. I'm very impressed, and I think everybody that's been on the skiff with me is equally as impressed. And I think Brian and Heidi are doing some great things with that company.
Well, I gotta assume that the new 8-weight is a lot quieter hull-wise than the older Hughes that you ran. I mean, you probably don't have any hull popping out of it at all.
No, not really. But I mean, there's angles that you can't really avoid water slapping up against the hull at some point. But it's not like slap, 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 slap. Yeah, I mean the lappy. I mean, yeah, actually, the lap straight hull did a lot better than the straight clean without the lap strake.
Yeah, I've seen some of them that it just pop the entire time.
Oh yeah. I mean,
100%. I had one gentleman who was trying to sell me on one. I said, has anybody ever caught a snook off of this thing? Because it makes more noise. You might as well just be pitching grenades out here, all the noises.
Man, I have caught every species possible on that freaking Hughes. And I've done a lot of different things on that Hughes. So at some point it's all kind of just doc talk, right? But as I like to say, it's not the arrow.
What type of push pole do you like to use? And I know some have some pretty steep price tags to them, and then some of them are not that bad. What do you like to use, and how long is the one that you're running up
Well,
yours?
I mean, depending on what you want to accomplish, if like you're only fishing in shallow water, you don't need anything that big. Like
Sure.
18 footer is fine. Um, but me personally, I guide, so I have a Stiffy guide, 20, was it 24? Like if they made a 30 footer, I'd buy it. But the Stiffy guide, uh, it's worth every penny to me. And they do make a guide extreme, which is a smaller diameter, which is a pretty penny as well. But I'm a fan of Stiffy push poles. Nothing against Carbon Marine. It's just not my. I feel like they're a little heavier. I had a Biscayne for a while that worked great for me. The price was great, but they're a little heavier, a little girthier. And I actually, my first push pole from a Hughes was a TFO Mangrove, the one that you build yourself.
Oh yeah, how'd you like
And
that one?
that was great, man. It worked great. My buddy, who I mentioned earlier in the podcast, who worked for LMR Tackle, he gave me some of the stuff that they use when they seat guides. It's just polymer epoxy resin,
NASA grade stuff.
and I would use that on the seams for the ferrules, and that seemed to work pretty well. I think that's the biggest um, downfall, design flaw of those, and it's because of the way that it's made is the seams, in order for them to stay watertight. But no, man, I mean, they were like $250, and I think they even give
It's a heck of
you,
a price point.
yeah, I think they even give you JB Weld with them, so it's a no brainer. I had that push pole. I still have that push pole. It's been broken on both ends. I don't know how many times, but it was an 18 footer. I think now it's like a 15.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
yeah, it was, I mean, price is right. And kind of like, like the TFO thing, man, like, yes, get some gear and get going. You don't need to spend a crazy amount of money to get started. If you could do it economically, and yeah, you upgrade as you go along. Next
Well,
thing you know,
that's
you got,
true. And along those lines, perfect segue to the next question.
yeah.
Somebody has a skiff, they're a flats fishing junkie. Um, what do you feel, particularly in your area there in the Keys, is the most important upgrade that they could make to really help them increase their success ratio? Is it a trolling motor? Is it a power pole? What do you feel is, man, if you're going to spend your money, you're going to get your best return on investment by buying
Um,
this?
I would say electronics. Um, I know you have this question coming up as well. But as far as getting around and being familiar with the area, there is no substitute for being a prudent navigator. That's hands down. I mean, like I said, I'm freaking squid.
Squid quartermaster. I
But
expect that.
power, yeah, man. No, I mean, it's technology is, it's great to be in tune with the ecosystem and to listen to what, is, if I could say this, is least crunchy as possible. Being in tune with the ecosystem is a huge part of it. The smells, the looks, all that stuff. Take that into consideration, right?
Sure.
Because what you set out to do might not be possible that day. And I'm not talking about a safety or weather from safety standpoint or weather. It's just listen to what is going on there, but power pole's great, trolling motor's great. But in terms of knowing where you're going, electronics, quality electronics, they're just something that works for you. It doesn't need to be the latest and greatest, most amazing deal. Just something that works for you, that's accessible, that's user friendly, that you know where you're going, and you could use that to get there. Now, once again, being in tune with the ecosystem. If it's you're reading the water and you're like, wow, it called for this to be a 1.0 on the graph on incoming, and wind's been blowing north, it's winter time. Yeah, that tide didn't happen today.
No,
So
not at all.
it's not happening. It's to flip your quick, and knowing your bailout, you're having your parachute, having the ability to make that call on the fly comfortably and safe. That's where a good electronic chart is gonna come into play, man. And
What brand are
that
you running nowadays on your skiff?
I use a Simrad, the NSS Evo S or Evo 3S. I had the Go 9. I turned a lot of people onto that Go 9 just because it does run that FMT chip, and
I know you're a big fan of that, like I am.
I am, and I mean, but once again, not to solely depend on one means of navigation. Use your eyeballs.
Oh,
Been with
yeah.
so many dudes, and I've been on their boats, and I've no longer fish with them or work with them or whatever you want to call it because of their dependency on one facet, and that to me is a killer. So definitely by no means relying solely on one type of navigation. Siemens Eye dominates.
Oh,
But
I agree. I agree.
having,
Well,
as
you're not always flying IFR, so
No.
don't have your head stuck down in the screen all the time.
no,
I mean, Glenn can't update that chip fast enough
yeah,
when it comes to, obstructions and things of that
he
nature.
shouldn't have to. He shouldn't have to.
Yeah,
and
and that
and like
oyster
like
pot,
talking to him, and
that you just hit may not be on the
Yeah.
chart. And
well,
so,
that's just it, man. I mean, and around here we got the Bubba Stakes. I hit them. I hit one before. It sucked. Because lo and behold, I was looking at my machine for just a brief second, and I was thrown off my normal routine. I had some stuff going on. Let me just put it that way. And I took my eyes
Dropped in
off the road for a
situational
second
awareness.
and thumped it, So, we've all been there. It's just how you manage it and
Guilty as charged.
mitigate it. Yeah, man. You haven't been around till you've been aground, and only go as fast as you want to hit it. Blah blah blah. But that's all real. And so as far as gear on the boat is concerned, whatever is going to allow you to safely navigate and get to where you want to go, and also to be respectful to your other anglers. Once you understand the whole program and you understand where fish are, you're not going to go buzzing through that area because there's species that are hanging out there, and you'll ruin it, and you'll ruin it for everybody around you, unbeknownst to you, until you get back to the dock and there's a guide ready to cut your head off. Quite literally or figuratively, either way. But all of that really plays in, and if you don't know, ask. Oh my God, there's so many ways to share.
There's no such thing as a dumb question. I'm sorry.
No,
there really isn't.
No,
not at all. And I know that you've listened to the podcast with Glenn and I when we were talking about the development of the FMT chip. What is your take on its ability to help conserve our ecosystem? Do you think it will help save it?
I mean, it's knowledge is power, and
That's true.
Bliss, right? So, I mean, there's plenty of people that they have no business running. I mean, and then they go, all right, well, I'm gonna buy this FMT chip, and then, oh yeah, it's got red lines on it that takes me everywhere I need to go safely, and then there's some black lines that says I shouldn't go there when it's shallow, or there's this or there's that. You know what, man? That by means falls on the man who developed this system. I get kudos to him all day long. That falls on people doing things incorrectly. And I think that, if once again, where not to run, that's golden. Don't go run that grass flat. If you have a bigger boat, realize that boat is not quite set for that particular that particular instrument. That chip is meant for skiffs and shallow drafting vessels. It's not meant for a 36 yellowfin with triple 300s.
No, just because you see water and there's a heron standing in it and the water's up to his ankle, does that mean you're going to get through there?
No, even if it has a red track, like, hey, once again, there's a lot more that goes into it than just, okay, you could go there. Okay, you can't go there. And that's a flaw in our state more than anything. Just because you can buy a boat doesn't mean you could drive it.
Yeah, true. Very true. Let's touch on a couple of things for those that would love to go fishing with you.
Yeah.
Do you work with somebody ahead of time? Let's say they're a newer angler, especially fly angler, and do you offer a service, or you'll say, look, I'll help you if you're casting?
100%. That's something I'll always do. I don't book trips until I speak with who I'm taking out. Sometimes it's a 5-minute conversation because they're very familiar or they're a repeat client, or that, they came from a buddy guide of mine who I know they fish with a bunch and I know his style and I know what they're able to accomplish. And, so it's like, what are your dates? Cool. See ya, done. Newer anglers that haven't been to the area before, people that I haven't fished with, nor have they fished with my friends. Whatever variation it may be, always go through the basics, double hauling, what you'll be expected and what you should expect. I use it a lot. Chico Fernandez has a book called Fly Fishing for Bonefish, and he's got a lot of other books that are similar, and there's sections in there that talk about how to go fishing with a guide and what to expect and what he expects of you. And there's a lot of good topics to be, that you could read about and all that. And
Chico does some great books.
Yeah, man. And I mean, so I, if you want to call it I vet all of my potential clients and anglers. And I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, that there aren't any surprises. And I always want to keep an open line of communication. I feel like that ought to be reciprocated. And when that isn't, then, then it's kind of like, all right, well, I have to let this one go.
It's a team effort. It really is a team effort for it to be successful.
Oh, well, 1000%. I'm the one taking you there and you're the one executing. I can't do that for you. My buddy says, I could explain it to you. I just can't understand it for you.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah, man. So that's my approach to everybody that calls. And as far as information on techniques is concerned, I share as much as I can over the phone. My website has information. And then I also give, them the means to obtain that information via a fly shop, doing fly casting lessons with, our local fly shop, or, go on Google or YouTube and check out how to double haul, watch some videos on it, go to the gym with your tropical line. If you're in a cold place and practice in a gym or in an enclosed facility, just get familiar, when you show up prepared, that's your guide is substantially more excited to go that day.
How far do you feel somebody needs to be able to effectively cast to be able to reach the fish that you usually are putting them on in your part of the Keys? 40 feet, 50 feet?
Oh man, they need to be able to cast into the backing.
That's a lot.
It's a tall order.
That's a
I,
tall order.
In all reality, I mean, 40 foot is generally the size of each shooting head. That you coupled with the length of the rod, the length of your arm, the length of the leader, you're all of a sudden at just about 60. So if you get that shooting head out the end guide, you're generally good. Chip shots, catch fish all the time, sure. Big ones, caught tarpon 5 feet from the boat with just about the leader in the end guide. And I'm not stripping the entire time, just like, hey, just drop it over the side, boom, you got him. Like,
I bet that was a blast.
Oh yeah, man. I like a lot of times actually big tarpon eat right next to the boat. And
well, that goes to show you how quiet that hull is.
I mean, that was in the Hughes.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Okay.
That's amazing.
I mean, I haven't had a full tarpon season in this skip yet. So, but no, year after year, man. I mean, but no, the cast is very important. You need to learn how to double haul. You need to know how to back cast, and don't bitch about the wind. I don't want to hear about the wind.
You're always going to have wind. It's the flats. There's nothing there to break it.
It's the Keys is, the Keys ecosystem, the Keys weather patterns are by far the most unforgiving. We say if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. Since I've been out here on my porch talking with you, we've went from cold, wind, rain, and now it's sunny, breezy, and warm.
That's right.
I mean, and you know what I mean? So the wind
Welcome to Florida.
Yeah, man. I mean, the wind is a part of the game. The wind is your friend. I mean, if you learn how to cast, the wind does not affect you. To certain degrees, right? But generally, as a team, I can get you in a position in which we could accomplish what we need to accomplish. And fish are a lot less weary when there's chop on the water.
That's right.
And you could see into the water better when there's chop on the water as opposed to a slicker with glare. It's just, that's the way that goes. But yeah, so backcasting is important as an overhand cast. I got guys that could fish ambidextrous, like cast with their left hand and cast with the right. Man, if there's something you could strive to do, that is it. That is it. And I set a goal for myself that I reluctantly did not complete this past year in trying to be that guy. But yeah, so
when you're younger, you may be able to pull that off. That didn't work.
I mean, well,
that program is done burn way down here on the hard side.
Man, the way my right elbow is these days, I tell you, I need to get casting lefty here soon.
Well, I'm left-handed, so I can show you how to do it, brother.
There you go.
Speaking of tackle, if somebody's going to come and take a trip with you, which do you prefer? Them bring their own gear that they're comfortable with. If, that's a big if, I know, it can handle the chore, handle the duty. Or just say, look, I've got the tackle. It's rigged up. It's ready to go. Which of those two scenarios do you like best?
I'm either way with it, man. I'm either way with it because I want people to enjoy their craft. And, once again, I talk with them beforehand, and I'd be more than happy to write a in detailed email in regards to what you need to have in order to get it where it needs to be and tune it up. But
I know that's some of the stuff we're going to put up on Flats Nation here. You and I have been talking about that so that we can,
for sure.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. And I mean, and on the same facet, you know what, man, if you don't want to bring your stuff, I'm stoked because I've got all of the stuff you need. Everything is totally dialed. And that's the advantage of fishing domestic in the States.
Right.
Is most guides, man, we got it all. When you go overseas, you're bringing everything. You don't have that option. Most places. There are places that have, gotten a lot better at all that. But for the most part, you've got to bring all your own flies, all your own leaders, all your own rods, reels, everything. If you don't have it, they don't have it. I mean, they're looking for you to give it to them at the end of the trip. But that's the way that goes. So take advantage of, you know,
Just jump on my boat. Let's go fishing.
just jump on my boat. Let's go, man. I mean, but at the same time, like I said, people are really into the sport, and I don't want to rob that opportunity. I will say this though, if you are 100% demanding that you use your own leaders and you're tying your own knot when you break fish off, don't look back at me.
Yeah, don't look at me.
So don't you
I
dare.
get it.
Obvious, I say this for a reason. And I mean, what did I do wrong? Like, bro, I didn't sit there at the table when you tied the knot. So don't ask me what you did wrong. You
That's
didn't
right.
use my leader, or you used a pre-tied by Rio. Sorry, it broke on you. Sorry, Rio. But that's you're the master of your destiny. So that's it.
Chain's only as strong as its weakest link.
What's that?
Chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
That's it, man. 100%.
It's just, so the time invested in learning that art form, which it is. I've watched these guys make these leaders, and then they can do it very quickly because they've done, thousands of them, but it's an art form to be able to get those knots cinched down correctly.
They need to be seated correctly and
proper spacing so it turns over. I mean, it's an art form.
And I mean, I have analyzed my guys' knots before, and all right, man, if you really want to use your stuff, go for it, but know that I'm not signing off on that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That puppy wouldn't hold my tennis shoes on. I get it.
But they're paying me to take them fishing using their stuff. That's their decision. All right, cool. But once again, at the end of the day, even after you had your 5 beers and now you got a buzz and a little bit of confidence going, don't you dare talk smack about your experience and how you broke one off because you used your Homer Road knot that didn't see, whatever. But that's my take on it, man. I encourage it. I encourage both. And that's my take.
What do you feel is the best time of the year? And I know this is going to vary because
it's loaded.
Can migrate through. It's a loaded question, but let's gear this towards the newer client, the person who's just probably learning how to fly fish, and they're really excited to be able to get out there. What do you feel is the best time of the year?
I mean, to fish with me, I think that the fall is a great time of the year. In between, kind of when we're on the backside of, hurricane season and before we start getting whacked by fronts. But,
right.
Fronts and hurricanes and thunderstorms and everything is all a part of the game, man. So
it is.
I think that they're like right now it's the end of January and it's 80 degrees in my house. Like, okay, well, it all depends on likelihood of getting smacked by crap weather.
Sure.
The fishing in May and June is phenomenal, but that's the beginning of hurricane season, and there's crazy thunderstorms and water spouts and lightning storms. So you might get chased off the water by those. This time of the year, it's cold front season. Generally, less thunderstorms, but the chance of getting whacked by a front that drops the water temp down and the fish just decide we're not going to play today or for this entire week. So every time of the year has its advantages and disadvantages, but personally, I think spring and fall are some of the best times to be here. Changing
seasonal changes,
and gets the fish moving around a little bit, man. So one thing I ping on here is pressure. And March, April, May is when we get, all of these travel guides coming in, and it's a total, there's just so many boats and so many spots, and you're just like, you come around the corner just like gritting your teeth, like, please don't let me be a boat there. Please no boat there.
Kind of reminds me of tarpon fishing in Boca Grande.
Yeah, man. And I mean,
that's like fishing in a Walmart parking lot. I'm sorry.
It's a vast area. There's a lot of water. There's a lot of spots, but I'll tell you what, the place shrinks when you know the area well. And not to mention, at the same time, not trying to give up spots. So, it does become more difficult for the guide when it's busy. So, and that's spring. But the fishing's great. That's why there's so many boats
That's right.
here. And on the same facet, once again, not to discourage people from experiencing this fishery. It's amazing. If you're so into it that you're like, I want to give everything up, move here, be a fishing guide. Cool, that's fine. Just do your time, do your homework, and be respectful of the people that are out there and of the fish. Don't wear them out in a spot. Experience it, move on. And that experience, that knowledge comes with time. If I think people learn it sooner or later, and the sooner they learn it, the better they are.
Sure.
But the timing of the year, that's why I'm a little bit more keen to the slower times, because there's less pressure, and generally the fish react accordingly.
No, they're not being driven over all day long.
That's right.
You drive over them a couple of times, it's over with. I've seen it where you change the speed on the trolling motor and you turn fishing off for 20 minutes till they settle back down again.
Yeah.
It's what should somebody bring, and probably more importantly for your trips, what should they not forget to bring? Because I'm quite sure you stood at their dock and you're like, you didn't bring a hat, or you didn't bring polarized sunglasses. What do you feel is the worst part of that?
Yeah, I mean, those three for sure: hat, glasses, buff, sunscreen. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've had show up to the boat in tank top and shorts.
It's a good way to cook.
Yeah, those aren't like my diehard fly anglers. Those are just your everyday people who, they're just going out to fish, man. I do that stuff too, just because it's nice to mix it up and not just be so much of an introvert on that side of things. But it's good for me, at least works for me. But clothing is definitely a large part of preparation. But then again, I mean, some people don't care about skin cancer. Like I like the sun. I want a nice roasty burn. I want that leather skin after my 5 days in the Florida Keys. And
they just don't realize how intense the Florida sun is, much less bouncing off of the water.
Yeah, correct. So
you will cook so quick.
That's it, man. Just stuff to keep you comfortable. I mean, I think I've over the years I've got stuff in my boat to offset that particular situation. Sunscreen, extra buffs, extra glasses, even a koozie, because you forgot your koozie.
Right. Do you bring food and drinks along with you on your?
I don't. I load up with water. I fill up the Nalgene's with water. Purified, nice and clean. Everything's sterilized. I put it on ice. Whatever they want to bring beyond that is up to them. I mean, the Keys guide approach, which we hear from everybody out west and out of state. We're the only guys in the country that demand our clients bring food for us. It is a thing. I don't preach it as much as some of the other guys.
I just didn't know if they needed to show up, with a lunch that they wanted to bring, or just so they're prepared for the trip.
I mean that's it. They all bring their own food and drink, whatever they want beyond water. They could bring along. And I've got somewhere for them to store it and keep it cold.
Good deal. If somebody wanted to reach you to go for a trip, what's the best way?
Well, the best way is, just calling me up. But I do have a website. It's hotwaterfishing.com. I do have a social media account with the same name, Hotwater Fishing. And that's all got links to my phone, contact information, email, phone, text, whatever.
Whatever's convenient.
Whatever's convenient. The local fly shop in Marathon, 7 Mile Fly Shop, they
love that place.
It's a great spot, man. We're very thankful and grateful that it's here. They are a part of I'm a part of their network in terms of them getting people in touch with me and outfitted. But yeah, hotwaterfishing.com is probably the best way.
Well, I know 7 Mile works real well with the guide community for those trips. So, and that's, if you're going to the Keys, you need to visit 7 Mile Fly
Yeah.
Shop. That's a phenomenal shop.
Yep.
Everybody's nice. It's just well stocked. It's very well laid out. I mean, I love it. So I wrote an article on it. What are you looking time wise? I mean, how far out are you booked? And I know this is going to vary some, during the spring tarpon run and things of that nature. But how much of a lead time does somebody generally need to give you to be able to set up a trip?
The busier months, April, May, June, generally get booked the moment they walk off the boat at the end of their last day. That's like, all right, sign me up for next year, same time. Nope. Yeah, we'll do this week this time. Okay, you got it. So the hardcore tarpon anglers, they will book, year out every year. Generally, between February, even January and June, you need to be, a couple months out, that's preferred if you really want to, lock down a moon phase, that you're particular to, or if you talk to me and I suggest it, that's several months out is the way to do it. And that way the communication's there. It's not last minute. That said, I get guys that call me the night before, and if I'm open, great. If not, then I'll try to recommend you to somebody else that I fish with and know, and,
Sure.
Have beers with at the end of the day type of deal. But, there is no too far in advance. I wouldn't extend out past a year. I've got guys that are like, I'm looking about, getting down there, probably in about 2 years, maybe. And it's like, dude, all right, hold on. That's a little ambiguous. There's too much ambiguity there. Let's make sure you're set on coming here. And that's really as far out as you can be certain.
Sure.
I think in excess of a year is a little much. A lot can happen in that period of time, but I think a year is about as far out as you really ought to do it, especially for, that April, May, June stuff. A year works great because you know what you want. You
Sure.
want to be there. The weather could be good. The weather could suck, but you're going to be there. And I'm very dynamic that time of the year, start late, end early. So, go out early, end early, start late, end late, or any variation of the two. But, that's the finish line. May and June is when it's like, all right, suck it up. Like the craziness is about to end. So just power through it and let's go. But yeah, the bigger outings like that I do in the Everglades, camping, with my kind of A-list dudes, it's very, very, there's a lot of logistics that go into it, reservations and getting there and, doing the whole thing for several days on end. That sort of stuff I like to plan at least 6 months out, if not a year out. And that's, generally January, February, March for myself, which I'll be doing this weekend. Been up there last week, the week before, so.
Where are you launching out of generally when you go into the Glades? Flamingo?
Yeah, I stay in Flamingo. Yep.
Well, good deal.
Yeah, man.
Well, brother, awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge with us, and really looking forward to working with you as you're spearheading our efforts there on Flats Nation for the Keys, and with some tips and tricks and things of that nature. Really looking forward to that. And I wanted to thank you for taking the time to join us today. Always love chatting with you, brother. And glad to see that your business is growing and developing and is getting the focus that it deserves. And, my best to your fiance and everything. It's really looking forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Dave. Feelings are Likewise. And yeah, man, I'm stoked. I really appreciate you cutting out the time for me here.
No, anytime. Anytime. We'll do it again soon, too, because I definitely want to hear how the tarpon season's going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Looking forward to going out. One of these days, we'll have to hit a trip, and if nothing else, so Dave can get some more photography for Flats Nation.
Yeah, man. Sounds good to me.
Sounds great. Well, buddy, thanks again for joining us today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks again, Dave. Take care, man.
Have a great one.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our show today and found it both educational and entertaining at the same time. If you or your company would like to join the team on Flats Nation for a podcast or other coverage, feel free to drop us a quick note at info@flatsnation.com. And now, here's the rest of the song to run the skiff back home with. Tight lines and God bless.